Then it spreads its wings, which are far wider than my outstretched arms, and lands beside me, right there on the ground. Even though its wings are now folded, the bird is colossal.
This is Writer's Mosaic, in conversation. Author and activist Sita Brahmachari talks to author Jasbinder Bilan about keeping her family's stories alive.
I'm Sita Brahmachari and I am in conversation with Jasbinder Bilan. We are surrounded by nature here in your lovely home, Jasbinder, and also your incredible mantelpiece. I wonder whether you could talk us through some of the incredible things that are on your mantelpiece where you do school events, and your beautiful, beautiful books. I'm intrigued by these objects, especially that extraordinary bird.
Hi Sita, so lovely to be chatting to you here on this sunny afternoon. As you say, I do my school visits in front of this mantelpiece, and it was something that I developed during lockdown because as we all know, we had to suddenly be extra creative about how we were going to do these visits and reach out to children in their homes and in schools. So on my mantelpiece, I have probably the thing that I love the most is the most beautiful model that my very, very dear friend Mel Darban made for me. It's a model of the Lammergeier that is on the front of Asher and the Spirit Bird, and that is a big character in that particular book. Mel is an artist, as you can see, and she made it so elaborately, and it's made of paper mache, and it's probably about half a metre tall and maybe a quarter of a metre wide. And I always have it there on my mantelpiece. And when I do my school visits, I point to it and talk about the role of the spirit bird in this book, which is the spirit of Asher's Naniji. Also on my mantelpiece, I have two more animals because animals are really big in my stories. So I have a little figure, a little cuddly figure of Hanu the monkey, who is the monkey in Tamarind and the Star of Ishtar.
You're very big on monkeys.
I am very big on monkeys. And Hanu's actually inspired by the monkey that we had when I was growing up in India on our farm. We had a very dear wild monkey that adopted our family. She came into the farmyard one day and she decided to stay with us. So this little cuddly...
That monkey was called...
Omar.
In real life, okay.
Yes.
That monkey seems to have been a massive inspiration to you in your storytelling. To me, I can sort of see that monkey threading through quite a bit of the work.
Yes. So this story about Omar was a story that was told over and over again in my family. So I was born close to the foothills of the Himalaya on a farm, and we had a monkey who was always a big part of the family, although she wasn't with us in England. And it was a story that my grandma told, my mum told, my uncles told, every time we gathered around the dinner table in Nottingham where I was brought up. Omar's story would always be part of the offerings. And one of the things that apparently she did was she would take my brother, who's older than me, but he was a baby at the time, and she would take him and run across the farmyard, climb up the neem tree that is at the other side, and she would go to the very topmost branches, and she would sit there with him, rocking him as if he were her own little baby.
Oh. I sort of feel like you're taking us inside your book. I mean, the neem tree. I seem to remember the neem tree makes a sort of connection to quite a few of the stories as well. These magical trees, these magical birds. They're all on the mantelpiece there behind you. And so many of your stories have this really strong connection to India and to the landscape of the Himalaya and those kind of really visceral sensory memories in your storytelling. It's such a strong aspect of your writing, I think. You really create that landscape and that world. How was that evoked in you? Obviously, you've travelled to those places subsequently, but how did it grow in you?
I think a lot of the landscape and that sense of India being really strong inside me was through stories, because when I was still very, very tiny when I came to the UK. I was a toddler. So I felt like I didn't have my own memories of the farm, and I didn't have my own memories of Omar or the wheat fields and the cornfields. My father used to talk a lot about the landscape, and my Margie used to talk about it a lot. She sort of wove it within her stories. So I think it was every time those stories were told, it was like a very magical space and a very sort of sacred space in a sense. And I think especially because I hadn't seen those places, or I had seen them but I didn't have the kind of memories, I felt that those landscapes were really kind of body memories, you know, and I would think to myself, well, I've crawled across that farmyard, what would I have done? So it was almost like I was using my storyteller's imagination to imagine myself in these places. And I think, like we all know, when we imagine places, they're much stronger, more vivid, maybe even more spectacular than they are when in real life. So
that sort of space between, isn't it?
Yes.
The space between sort of imagining something and hearing the stories and then going to the place is maybe the place where the imagination grows best.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why when on the MA I had to think of a story that meant...
You did an MA... Where did you do your MA?
I did an MA in creative writing at Bath Spa University.
Before you started writing all these beautiful books? Or...
Yeah, so I'd always wanted to be a writer from a little girl. The thing that I absolutely loved to do was to write, to doodle, to draw, to look out of the window.
You have talked to me before about, I think we've spoken before about these little people that we both saw when we were children.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I don't know whether it's an author thing. But we see
Did you used to see them as well?
I saw these imaginary little people that were very real to me, and that margin between reality and fiction was very loose.
Very much so. I remember any time I was feeling like I needed some entertainment, I would magic these little people up and they would just appear and they'd be on top of the chest of drawers, and I could sit there for hours and be entertained. And I just remember it so vividly. And, you know, they would appear, they would disappear, and it was just very, very normal for me to have that.
Part of your landscape.
Exactly.
So the Lama guy, you talked about sort of spirituality. It seems like in all of these stories, and you've got the word spirit in one of your stories, it seems like the spirituality is very much part of your storytelling.
Yeah, so
through nature, possibly.
Yes, I think it's a mix of all these things. And my Margie, my grandma, used to talk to me a lot. I had a very special bond with her. And
did she live in Nottingham?
She lived with us, mm-hmm. Yes. So from the time I was a baby to...
Large family, wasn't it? A large family.
Well, we lived in a large family probably for a year, I think. Mm-hmm. And so we were all together because my uncle, my father's eldest brother, had been in England for about 10 years before we all came. And so in the beginning we all lived together, but then probably after a year we all had our own houses. And
because
then
that family, that communal family and community is so much part of your storytelling too.
Yes, because I think, you know, even when we all had our own houses, we all used to gather, and we used to gather at my house, at my mum's place, because she was such a good cook and she was very, very welcoming and sociable. And of course, you know, they'd all lived together in India, so they'd been in the farm, kind of working together, having fun together, and so it was just very natural that everybody should gather gather and kind of eat and talk, and that's when all these stories about India would just surface. And they were really, really happy times. And I just remember my uncles being there and just lots and lots of laughter. And I think the wonderful thing is that if, anybody's born in a big family, what you realise is that I have 6 siblings, so there's a big family there, and your parents are only 2 people, so they can't always give you the attention. But when you have this big family, you can have special relationships with different members of the family, and you get adult attention, which is so wonderful from lots of different people. So from my uncles I had that, from my grandma, from my Manji, and it was really quite a special, nurturing, confidence building time. And of course we were talking about a time when everybody was working together, and obviously there was Omar was there, and it was just really magical.
Something I really connect to, we've spoken about before, is the intergenerational nature of the storytelling. Is that there's a kind of model of children's books where the adults kind of butt out and the children get on with their adventure. That's not the way that your stories work, is it?
No, I think that in all my stories I have the range. So there's the nanny, the children, the mom, the dad. They're all kind of part of the story, part of the landscape, and that it might be that there are parts of it where the adults don't feature, because in Asha and Spirit Bird, Asha's the one that decides that she's going to go on this long and dangerous journey across the Himalaya in search of her father. But the influence of her Naniji and what she means to her is so strong. And my grandma talked to me a lot about her beliefs to do with reincarnation. Yeah. And it was a real honour to be able to bring those beliefs into a story for children.
Nanaji threads through, I think, all of your stories so far. I haven't read the latest one, which has just arrived on the mantelpiece. Zanti and the ruby crown, and it's so beautiful. But I don't know if she features in any way in that story, but it seems like even in your latest non-fiction book, India, Incredible India, she's right there.
Yes.
Is she there in that beautiful
She
new
is.
book?
She is. She's there in kind of a different guise. So, so Xanthi in the Ruby Crown is a little bit different because it's set in Nottingham, which is where I was brought up. So that's kind of a really going to be, well, it is a really special book to me, and in different ways, because Asha and Tamarind are set in India, Artie is set on a wild island in Scotland, and then Xanthi is set in Nottingham. And I had to work really hard in this story to bring the magic from my other stories into an urban setting. It was quite a challenge, but...
Did you not find it so easily in the city?
I didn't find it easily, because what usually happens with me is I start with a setting that I really love and that I want to be in. And somehow the urban setting of Nottingham was my everyday. I had to find these pockets of places that could become magical. And so a lot of the story takes place in a tower block, which was part of the landscape of where we played when I was growing up. And it was very much a kind of a landscape of adventure, because we would, in those days, you were allowed to run wild, really. We were allowed to run wild.
Yes, people would say go out at the beginning of the day and come back at tea time.
Exactly. So we had an Alsatian dog called Sabre, who we loved to bits, and we would just roam around that urban setting and find magical things, actually. Yes. We might find a kind of a strange coin, or we might meet people. So it was a really interesting environment. We would go walking, and we would go walking to this beautiful country park that's maybe about half an hour walk from where I was brought up, and we would do that regularly with our dog, and that features in Xanthi and the Ruby Crown as well.
So you were finding the moments in your own childhood that you found magical.
Yes,
in that urban landscape.
yes, no, exactly. And I think that's what I like to bring into my stories, is the fact that, and particularly in Xanthi and the Ruby Crown, is that there's magic in all settings. It doesn't have to be the Himalaya, or it doesn't have to be a wild Scottish island. You know, that if you look around you, even in an urban setting, there's magic around. And I think nature is so magical, because you can be walking along a urban street, and then suddenly you see a flower that has just managed to snake its way up, and it's just there, you know, for you, and it's all free. Or you happen to be out early in the morning and you see the sunrise, and those moments, I think, fill children with real hope and this equality that, you know, that these aren't things that depend on how much money you have or who your parents are or anything like that. You know, they're there for everybody if you want to notice them.
I'm looking at these really, I know they say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but these covers are so exquisitely beautiful. When you look at them, do they reflect what you wanted to create when you were doing your MA at Bath and you were dreaming of writing these? I think you wrote the first story there on the MA course, is that right?
I did, yes.
Was it, did you ever dream of having these beautiful, beautiful covers for your stories?
Well, I did dream, but I didn't know whether that dream might ever become a reality, because as we all know, as writers, before we're published, you never know whether that dream is going to become a reality for you. I think, you know, that there is such a magic, and when I saw the cover of Asha for the very first time, it was such a magical moment. I can't describe.
Tigers and flowers and lammergeier birds and beautiful pink hearts, and
it's just the promise, isn't it? It's the absolute promise that this book is going to whisk you away. You know, it's a window into this magnificent world that you might have been to, but that, you know, you can explore and visit from the coziness of your bed or from the sofa or wherever you are.
I think for me they speak of, you know, the diaspora, the wider the landscapes of the heart and the mind and the imagination, and they're quite broad in that sense. You can sort of see they are reaching to a bigger world. Those covers, one might be set in Nottingham, but you can't see Xanthi and Ruby Crown. It's not like a Nottingham cover. It's a cover which is for those children wherever they are in the world to engage with nature. They're very, very beautiful. And a dress. There's a dress on the mantelpiece. What's the dress doing there?
So the story behind the dress is really rather magical as well, I have to say.
Lots of magic in your story.
Lots of magic and lots of signs. You see, I kind of when I was writing,
we have that in common, don't we?
Yes,
children that are looking for signs.
Yes, exactly. Signs from the universe. And before I knew whether Asha was going to be a published book, I was in Bath with some friends, and we were just having a coffee, and I went into this shop and I saw this dress, which is now on my mantelpiece, and it was just the universe telling me that I needed to write this book for sure, because this dress it's blue and green. It has a lammergeier on it.
You would not.
It has
a lammergeier is not a common bird. Let's face it.
It has. It might be an eagle, but I'm going to say it's a lammergeier. So it's set in the mountains. Yeah. It has a tiger. A tiger appears in Asha and the Spirit Bird. It has a wolf, and there are wolves in the high Himalaya. It has a forest and waterfalls.
I just think it has your name on it.
It has my name on it. So I did buy the dress, as you can see.
I wondered whether you would read to us a little bit, because I happen to know how much children love you reading from your books, from your school visits. Perhaps the moment with the Lammergeier would be one.
It would be a pleasure. So this is the moment that Asher first meets the Lammergeier in the farmyard. When I open my eyes again, the Lammergeier has perched on the old well. It's about the size of a lamb, with dark bronze wings and a grey beak. Golden feathers cover its head and the rest of its body. It struts around the crumbling wall and begins pecking, as if it's looking for grains of wheat. Then it spreads its wings, which are far wider than my outstretched arms, and lands beside me, right there on the ground. Even though its wings are now folded, the bird is colossal. They usually keep away from people, but I'm so close I can see each bright yellow scale on its legs and its grey ridged talons, which it uses to scratch at the ground. The Lammergeier starts to make a clucking sound, as if it's trying to tell me something, and I stare into its dark flecked eyes, mesmerised. I feel a little heart patter of nerves, but lean even further forward, stretching my fingers towards its feathery wing. It hops away, perching back on the well, tilts its head to one side and lifts its wings. I wish you were my Naniji, I say, my voice quivering. I need her so much. A grey feather, tinged with gold, floats down and lands by my foot. I stroke its silky softness and weave it into my plait. Perhaps I'll call you my spirit bird. It keeps looking at me, unfurls its powerful wings again, and this time rises into the grey-white sky, billowing dried shisham leaves into the air like dust.
So beautiful. I can see that Lammergeier taking off now in my imagination. It's been an amazing journey for you as a writer, starting your first book on the MA, and then all of this. I'm also looking, you're probably too humble to say, but it's the Indie Book Awards, which you won recently, and for your early books, the Costa Award.
Yes.
And
I won the Times Chicken House for Asher, and that's
right.
how it was published.
Yeah, that's right. So that must have been quite a whirlwind for you.
Yes, it was. It was one of these things where you feel, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if anybody's, apart from me, is going to read this book. And then I won the Times Chicken House Prize, and that was just incredible. I couldn't believe that I had got through to the long list and then the short list, and then I won it. And I just remember the day when Barry Cunningham called me, and I was picking my boys up in a dark car park, and I had a number that I didn't recognise, and I was just completely confused about who it might be. And then with this wonderful, wonderful news. And so once I won the Times Chicken House, I knew for sure that it was going to be published, and it felt like it had been a very steep journey, because I didn't get an agent straight away. After the MA, we had our book launch, and although I had quite a lot of interest, I didn't get my agent straight away. And so it took a little while, but then when it happened almost so spectacularly, and as you say, and then it won later that year, it won the Costa, and that was another total surprise, but also I felt so proud of this story that I was able to share with young readers, because that was my main aim for this book, that I was trying to write a story that I would like to have read. I'm talking about Asher.
Asher and Spirit Bird.
Yeah. So it was a story that was really special to me, that was inspired by my Margie, my grandmother, and I knew now for sure that it was going to reach lots and lots of young readers.
How wonderful. And oral history seems to be such an important part of this journey for you. And I think Nanaji coming back in this book that you have recently published, India, Incredible India, which is a homage to India, really. It's a non-fiction book. But she still features in this story as a kind of guide through.
Yes.
Isn't she?
Yes, that's right.
I wonder if you could read a little bit of from the end of this book, where she's kind of taken the reader on a journey through these real places that you can go to.
Yes. So shall I say a little bit about the book?
Please,
So this is my very first non-fiction book, India, Incredible India. Walker actually approached me in 2019, so it was quite some time ago, and it was after Asha was published, and they proposed this project about a fact book about India. So I thought a lot about it, and I needed to have a way into the facts, because I wanted it to connect with readers. So I came up with this idea that Naniji could be the guide, like you say. She could be the guide, somebody that knows India so well, and she's travelled all the way round. And in each of the places that she's visited over her life, she's either collected an object or she's bought an object.
We're back to the mantelpiece.
Back to the mantelpiece. And she's collected them all in this wonderful shisham wood trunk, a carved trunk. And when Dara goes to sleep over, she gets to choose an object, and then Nanji will tell her the story of this object. And then the other side of the page is a visit to this particular state, and that's where you have an opportunity to find out some facts about it.
I love that combination.
Yeah, so I'm going to read the very final page. As Naniji tucks the blanket under my chin, my mind is whirling with all the stories she's told me about growing up in India. When my eyelids begin to droop, I feel the magic taking me there. The wind blows softly, and I smell the sweet wheat fields on the breeze. I hear the low mooing of the cows and the voices of children playing. I join in their game of chase, and we run under the shady shisham tree, throwing ourselves down onto the brightly coloured durry, where my Naniji is waiting with a cool glass of yogurt lassi. I sip it slowly, watching the stars as they light up the night sky. I'm so relaxed, so happy here, that I can feel myself starting to drift off to sleep. I hear Naniji humming a lullaby and the soft click of my bedroom door. I pull the blankets tighter as her footsteps tap down the stairs. Tonight, I'll be in the village of the peacocks. Tomorrow night, who knows where Naniji's stories will take me? In India, Incredible India.
Jasbinder, thank you so much for transporting us with your incredible, beautiful storytelling. And what an amazing collection of books you have written. These incredible intergenerational stories. I have loved reading all of them. I wonder what you're planning next.
Ooh. I think I need to start casting my story net for another story.
Jasbinder, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Thank you.
Jasbinder Bilan was in conversation with Sita Brahmachari. To hear more writers, go to writersmosaic.org.uk.